Hello everyone, this is Betsy from Ideas Times 2, and today I'm working on something and I thought I would just turn on the camera and start this project and let you know what I'm doing, and also just to encourage you to use what you have around the house, things that you can repurpose, and so that's what I'm doing with this. So it all started out with, I just finished 2 sea-themed journals using this beautiful graphic 45 paper. And I don't have very much left. I have a sheet of ephemera, a sheet of paper, and some scraps. Not a lot left, but not enough to really put it away and save it for something else. So I decided to finish up that paper. And at the same time, I thought, well, how can I use it? And I had this at work. So a friend had given this to me at Christmas time. You can see it was sort of like a small chunky book, and it was blank note paper. And I had taken it to work and, used the scrap paper from it. And it started to get really beat up. I don't know if you can see that. It's faux leather, and it just started leaving little black particles all over my desk. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take that home. And the size of this is so fun. It's like 5 1/4 by 5 1/4, something like that, with a little chunky spine. And I just thought it was an adorable cover. It's got a little padded sort of, like it would be a leather book or something. And my name obviously is Betsy, so this has a B on it, and it was recessed. The B is recessed in there. So what I've started to do is, this is matte gel medium, and last night I just scraped that matte gel medium to get this recessed area filled out so that it's nice and flat, so I can cover this. And I think I'm going to cover it with fabric. So, but it's dry now, which is great. But I'm using my finger, and it still feels like it has a little indent right there. So I'm going to put another coat of this matte gel medium. And so this is just to let you know how I'm prepping this cover for covering it with fabric. And I'm sure you've seen lots of videos how to cover it with fabric, but I thought I would just, encourage you to use what you have and see what you can come up with. So this is pretty old, and it's gotten quite thick, which I don't mind. I mean, for this project it works perfectly. So I'm just taking a palette knife, which I've had forever, and I'm just gonna, this is really very thick. I'm just gonna scrape it on the cover, give it another coating. If you don't have a palette knife, just use the back of a table knife, or a ruler, acrylic ruler or metal ruler, whatever you have. Just give it a nice even scrape. Okay, that is it. And then I usually just scrape off the excess. The edges are sometimes raised up a little bit, and if that doesn't help too much, I will just, no, I'm not doing it on the B part, I'm just doing it on the outside edge to make sure there aren't any stray sort of uneven surfaces. Okay, and so I will need to let that dry, and I usually let it dry overnight, and then I'm trying to eyeball it. It's looking really good, so I'm going to eyeball it and just a little bit. What I may do as well, to sort of help with that surface that is perhaps going to be a little bumpy, is I might put a piece of cardstock just over this. That might help it a little bit, but I don't know yet. I'm going to let this dry, and I'll come back and we'll see what else needs to happen here. The other thing I might do once this is all dry is give it a coat of paint, like a white gesso or a white acrylic paint or something. But the fabric I've chosen to put on it is this dark blue, so I don't think it's going to matter too much, but I think it'll give it a little bit more stayability for the glues if I put gesso on it. So, or I'll just scratch this up a little bit more, but we'll come back to that, and I will be back in just a second. I'm going to let this dry overnight, and then we'll catch up with you in a minute. Okay, I am back. I'm gonna bring you a little closer there. So I wound up putting 3 coats on this, and I feel like it's nice and flat now. That recessed B has filled in, and it is not bumpy at all. But I did decide to, I talked about using cardstock or something, but I think I'm just going to put a very thin layer of batting. Can you see that? Just very thin. The thinnest kind you can get just about, I think. And then I'm going to put that over here on this whole cover. And then I will put this over the top, and then I will wrap it around and give this little book a whole new look. So the first step is the batting, and I've cut it, I think, the right size. I can always trim it later too. I was thinking about putting gesso. I'm not real sure if I need it, so if I do wind up needing it, I will, we'll figure it out. But I'm going to use PVA glue. It's very liquidy, and I'm going to brush it on evenly and then press the batting and into the cracks here, the spine seams, and press it on. And so I'm just going to try that. Try a thin layer of PVA glue. So so I don't have to maybe stop quite as much. I just put that in a little container, and I have a paintbrush, and I'm just going to go ahead and I want to get in the crevice of the spine because we want the batting to stay nice and tight on there. So just going over the whole thing. I'm just going to do the front cover first, and then we'll work on the spine. So I would use Fabri-Tac, would work as well, one of my favorite glues, but I decided this will give me a nice even layer, and it doesn't dry quite as fast as Fabri-Tac, so I thought that might be an advantage in this case. So we're going to try that. Okay, and then just firmly press that in. So we want our fabric to lay over here as smoothly as possible, so we're going to just make sure that's pressed down. Then I'm gonna get a little bit more glue before I do anything. There we go. And then lift this up just a tiny bit. And then get the spine. And the crease of the spine. Okay, then I'm gonna press that down and crease that up. Okay, and then, see if I got it. Yep, it's going to work just perfectly. So then lift that up again, and then we're going to do the back cover. Yeah, this PVA, I think this was a good choice. And the book cover's not crumbling or falling apart once I get this glue on. So I think it worked out perfectly. Give that a nice even coat. All right, and then push that down. All right, and then I'll need to let this dry. We don't want any oozing onto our fabric, just in case. There shouldn't be any oozing but this batting is very thin. But there shouldn't be any oozing because we put such a nice fine layer on here. But I'm gonna go ahead and let that dry. And we should have a nice little base for our book cover, for our fabric to go on top. I'm excited. This is a great little size. It'll be a fun journal. Okay, so I'll be back after that dries. All right, I'm back. This is dry now and ready to put some fabric over the top. It's going to be such a cute book. I love this chunky little size. So that batting is ready to go. I trimmed it up a little bit more, So what I did here, this is the fabric I chose. I showed you that already, and I cut it down to size. Some of my edges here aren't too straight, but that's okay. What I did was I made this into book cloth. So basically, making something into book cloth, all you're doing is putting something in between your main, your outside fabric and your book cover. And I do have the batting on there, but it's sort of really not, it's an extra thing that I added. Normally you would just probably glue this right onto a book cover, right? So you have to have something in between the glue and the fabric. So what I did here was I fused Pellon SF101 interfacing. It's a very thin interfacing, and I just fused it on, so I've got it's sort of become one fabric, but it just gives me that protection so the glue won't seep through as easily. That's all book cloth is. It's just, I think I've seen people using tissue paper and different things. I haven't tried too many other things. This is one of my favorite ways of doing it. All right, so I am just making sure that it looks straight. And then I'm going to start gluing, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Fabri-Tac for this, because this is fabric and this is made out of cotton, and so it's like gluing fabric to fabric, and there's probably nothing better than Fabri-Tac for that. So, and then so Fabri-Tac is pretty thick, and I'll be spreading it as thin as possible, and then I'll be wrapping that. Okay, and then I'll do that on the spine and then do it on the back. And this is pretty cool. Like, I can't tell which had the bee on it. Maybe I do see it right here. I cannot really tell. This maybe is it, but it doesn't matter, right? Because it's kind of neutral right now. So I wrecked my position. I had it all figured out where I was gonna put my boat and the star. I want to make sure they're as even as possible, and make sure this is on as straight as possible. Okay, I think that's good, and it gives me enough to wrap around. Maybe just pull it just a little bit more, so I have a little bit more to wrap around. Okay, all right, here we go. So like I said, it is pretty globby, and the whole thing doesn't need to be 100% covered, just enough to give this holding power for when the book is open and closed. We want, of course, we don't want the fabric to move, right? So, okay, and then that's just going to go over the top. And making sure that I'm straight. So this word Oceanus, yep, okay, it looks like it's pretty straight. And I have enough to wrap around. So I cut this 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch bigger than my cover, and that's what I'm going to use to wrap around to the back. And I did cut these corners already, so I just noticed that I need to fix this a little bit. So, fortunately, was not dry yet. Okay, now that's a little crooked. Oh, I'm sorry. We will get this fixed yet. We will get it fixed. The thing is I kind of started, I got a little carried away and did my corners already. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a problem right now. Okay, let's try that. Yeah. Looks good. Okay, the reason why I had to stop doing what I was doing is because this corner was too close. Like, I wouldn't have been able to wrap it, but I had to pay more attention to that because I cut it already for some reason. All right, and I believe it was still wet enough. Yeah, I think it's fine. All right, now we'll do the spine. And also going to make sure that this part, the bend in the spine, has got glue on it too, so that this fabric can be totally attached. Okay, all right. Okay, and then we'll just lift that up and we'll do the rest of it. All right, so make sure that the bend in the spine is nice and covered. And spread this out. All right, should work. All right. Okay, nice and covered. See the bends there? So it's gonna sit really well, I think. Okay, now flip it over, and then we'll start gluing, wrapping this around. And you may need to trim this a little, give it a little dart or something to help that lay okay on the spine. Okay, so when you get to the spine, make sure, once again, that you're really giving that a good push down on the bend. We don't want any stiff fabric on there. We want to make sure it's nice and flexible. Okay, so the corners, we'll just glue this down all the way to the edge. Also, I'm going to try to get the glue down on the edge of the cover too, and that way this will be nice and secure. Okay, so we are going to get a little dab of glue right underneath, right on the edge of that book cover right up there. And then what we're going to do is take our bone folder or a straight edge of some kind, or even your finger, and just push that down. Just give it a good push, and it'll stay because of your glue. So the part I'm referring to is this one right here. So that'll stay, and then we're just going to wrap that around like this. Okay, so nice and tight. And then push this over the edge here, nice and tight. Okay, and that'll give you a nice crisp corner like that. Okay, and if you need to put another dab of glue right there, just, you know, lift it up a little bit and just put a little dab. All right, and then the other corner the same way, and I won't make you watch me do this whole thing, but we're gonna make sure I'm doing an okay job explaining the corners, because that's always the trickiest part. Okay, so I'm putting glue on the edge right up here at the corner, okay, and then I'm taking my bone folder and pushing it up against the book cover, okay, and then one more time like this, and wrapping it around the book cover, and then pushing that up. I had to put a little extra crease in it because it wasn't going to lay flat for me. Nope. Okay, there. Okay, nice sharp corner there, and etc. So just keep going around, and then you'll have a nice padded little cover. Okay. Super excited about this, and I will show it to you when I'm done. And maybe I will also put some pages together, and I don't think I'm gonna sew it directly into the spine. The spine is getting thick. The cover was thick to begin with, and we have now batting and 2 layers of fabric, so it's getting a little thick. I don't think I'm gonna put I don't think I'm going to sew my papers directly onto my spine. I think I'm going to make it a hidden spine. So I'll come back and do that part with you as well. And then this little book will be done. Got to put some end papers right to cover these up too. But for now, I will finish this, and I will come back when that is all done to figure out our next step. Okay guys, I don't think I mentioned it. So there's no secret number. This is a padded sort of cover, and there's no secret like 1/8 inch or anything where I cut, but I will kind of, especially on a cover like this, if you're talking about a very thin cover, an 1/8 inch usually covers it just fine, but I sort of go like this to see how much I need to cut off from here so that those corners aren't real bulky. But I can't cut off too much because otherwise this is not going to wrap well. So that's about right. On this particular cover, it's like 1/4 of an inch. So this is a little bit bigger than normal. Normally you can just do like an 1/8 of an inch, but just kind of eyeball it when you wrap it around. Just kind of take note of how far that took to actually come around the cover. So no secret there. I just wanted to let you know how I was doing the corners, because I don't think I covered that. So now I will finish this all up, and I'll be back with how to complete the rest of the cover. All right, hello, this is finished now. Just the wrapping part of the fabric, and it's all dry. And I wanted to show you, before I show you what else we're gonna do here, I wanted to show you that at each of the hinges, the bend in the between the spine and the cover, I did put little darts. So I just did a little clip the fabric to loosen it up so it doesn't, so it lays flat. Otherwise it has a tendency to be real stiff, and then you can't use the book cover very well. So just a little clip on each, making sure it doesn't go all the way to the edge, of course, because then it's going to show. But this is going to be covered up with fabric, and I didn't clip it too far, but just enough to give it, see how flat it lies. So that is super nice. Okay, so then I decided I didn't have enough of my cute graphic 45 paper to put on here, so I just chose plain blue, and I cut them already. So I will be gluing those on actually first, before I do the signature. So that's the plan for that. And then I do have my signature block ready, so I'll explain to you what I did in just a minute. But I was just going to show you, I have Tyvek and fabric, and that's going to go right over the paper, and then I'm just going to glue those down. So let me show you what this is here. I'll set this aside for just a minute. So I cut a piece of fabric because I knew I wanted fabric. I cut a piece of fabric that is the width of the spine, plus I think it was about, let's see, it's about an inch, which is going to include this crease that's going to be pushed in a little bit, right? So it's about an inch though past the spine, measurement on each side. And then the height is, it looks like I did it exactly the height of the book. You could go a little past if you want, and make sort of a fringy area. You can make it a little shorter if you want. It doesn't really matter as long as you like the look of it. All right, so it'll be stable either way, or any way you choose to do it. But I just made it the exact height of the book, and I will be fringing it up after I glue this down a little bit. Okay, so what is this exactly? So I cut the fabric, as I mentioned, because it matched, and it was a little scrap I had. It worked out perfectly. And to give it a little bit more strength, I attached a piece of Tyvek, which it came just from this envelope. And it's a very sturdy paper-like plastic, I guess. I'm not sure the exact definition of Tyvek. And it's very sturdy, and so it's very thin as well and flexible, so it's great for supporting a spine and the hinges of a spine. So it's great for that. So what I did was I used a glue sheet, and I fused these two pieces together, this Tyvek and the fabric. I just fused them together. So then I had the piece that I felt was sturdy enough for my signatures to sit tight and then adhere to the book cover. So just for a little bit more, I guess just for ease, I should say, for ease of sewing, I did add a little piece of cardstock here. And this piece of cardstock is the exact size as the spine itself. And then it comes down about 1/4 of an inch from the height. So it's all told, it's about 1/2 inch shorter than the spine, because I didn't want it to show. See how it's down a little bit? I did not want that to show at all. So I'm sure you've done this and seen this many times, but I just made my grid pattern on here. I figured out how far apart to put my signatures, and I put it down 1/2 inch here. I marked the center and 1/2 inch from there, and I poked my holes following that grid line. This was before I glued it on. I poked the holes, and then I turned it around. The signatures are not sewn in yet. I just poked the holes first, and then I attached this on, and then I sewed the whole thing all together. So we do have tutorials on hidden spine, and I will find that, and I will link it down below. There might be more than one. I know I have one. Cindy may have one as well. All right, so, but you've probably, seen other people do it, or you've probably done it yourself. But just sew your signatures onto the piece that you are going to glue into the book cover. And make sure you have something to cover up the ugly part. You don't want to make this a nice sturdy scrap. It might be a scrap, but it won't match your book. Just make sure you got something nice that you want to show there. Okay, so very easy. The next part is the easiest part of all, right? It's just gluing. So I'm going to make sure I have the height and width here. I don't want to sell myself short on the height. I want to make sure that I cover as much of that fabric as possible. There we go. All right, so that is the way I'm going to do it, and I'm using Fabri-Tac. Gives you a little time to work with, but it's very strong adhesion. So make sure you get the center as well as the outside edge. I'm pretty sure I've said that already. And then I'm going to smooth it out so it goes all the way to the edge of the paper, because we want to make sure there aren't any gaps. Okay, and then just flip it over, center it as much as you can, and then press down. And so you notice I don't have this covering up this the hinge because we don't want to hinder that. We don't want to make it thick and bulky so it won't open and close. So this just covers just the basic back cover here. And then the decorative part will, with just the very, very thin layer of Tyvek and the fabric, will actually be the hinge part, and it'll be easy to open and close with those thin layers, but we don't want to add too many layers to that hinge. So that just covers the back, and then this one will cover just the front. And then I'll probably be gluing pockets on here, but I didn't show you too many of the pages, but the pages are basically done. So I'm actually reaching the final stages of being done with this book, but I wanted to show you how I repurposed that kind of nasty looking, you know, book cover, but it was a great size and it was still usable, so we changed it into something really cute. Which is one of my favorite things to do, is repurpose. Okay, so make sure we're all down and it looks really good. Okay, so see, the still are opening and closing. Make sure I've got the right side up and the pages are right side up. I could only decorate so much because this is already, you know, one size. I can't change the size of this at all. I could, I guess, by taking out this spine and putting in a new spine, but there's not much point in doing that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is actually just glue this down onto here. I'm going to put a little layer of cheesecloth right here just to help with adhesion, give it a little bit of surface roughness. That's all it's doing. It's not. And sometimes you can just let it hang out at the top and bottom, or a little bit of a ragged edge. It looks kind of cool that way. You could put 2 layers of cheesecloth if you want. It's so thin, it really does not affect the bulk, which is what we're trying to avoid, too much bulk, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna pull it down just so I have some little straggly strings there, because I might like to keep those. I'm not sure. I will look at it when I flip it over. So you can see I've this is white, but I have some ink splatters on there. So I'm not going to glue all the way to the top edge because I want to sort of make that a little raggedy, and the same with the side here. I want to make it, you know, rough it up with my finger a little. So I'm basically just gluing on the Tyvek. The Tyvek is a little bit smaller and I designed it that way. So that I can rough it up with my finger and give it a sort of a raggedy edge. So all I'm doing now, gluing in between the signatures, gluing right up to the edge with a generous amount of glue, but we don't want it oozing out everywhere either. Okay. All right. Once again, right side up, because you can't really go back. So then what you're going to do is center it top to bottom and left to right. And it is a wet glue, so it does give you time to, and you don't necessarily have to do that all at once like I just did. You can actually do that a few steps at a time. Glue half of it down and make sure it's secure, and then glue the other half down. Okay, so I'm just eyeballing it. It looks pretty good, I think, and we do want to make sure. Okay, so the back is down pretty well. Now, making sure this is straight though, because I'm getting the impression it's not straight. Yeah, it needed to move over a little bit. Okay, now that looks good. And top to bottom, just a tiny bit. All right. Okay, so now the other thing is we need to make sure that that hinge is creased down. Crease that down really well. Make it stick a little bit. Okay, also getting the impression it's a little crooked again, so let me okay, that's much better. Make sure that's right on both sides. Yeah, it is probably better to do it half at a time, because look, I do have a glue mess now, but that's okay. That will come off. That will come off. Alright, glue that down. And get that crease going again. Okay, flip it around and we'll do the same thing over here. Okay, I'm pulling it this way just a little bit. All right, smooth that down. All right. Made a little bit of a mess, but there we have it. So now, just make sure to dry it closed. Make sure your hinge swings well before you finalize the location, the position. And then when you dry it, one thing I'm going to do real quick is get in between those signatures one more time too, so they're nice and flat against the book. Okay, so that is it. Just let it dry like this, and then when you open it up, after it's dry, when you open it up, it'll be nice and flat, and it'll sit really well. Okay, so this is, it's popping open just because I have it decorated a little bit, put a lot of pages in there, so it's a little chunky. Okay, and then just, you know, clip this off, rough it up if you want to, decorate, you know, put a pocket on here or a tuck spot or something, envelope, button and string closure envelope, which I will be doing, and that's about all I've got left to do. I'm going to rough up my edges, maybe cut off some of those longer strings, but that's it, book done. So I just wanted to show you how to repurpose what sort of looked like something I could just throw in the trash, because it was kind of getting a little bit of a nuisance, kind of useless. So repurposed it into this cute little book. All right, so for closure, you know, you may choose to decide, but this is kind of thick cover, right? Padded cover. So I wasn't gonna do an eyelet, or I didn't want to do a cover decoration with a ribbon under it or anything like that. So my plan for this, since it's a nautical theme, was to I have a rope twine, and I'm just going to wrap it around and like put a key on the end or some charms on the end of that that's going to be my book. I might put a little dangle on here, but this will eventually in the next few days go up for sale in our Etsy shop, but it's not quite ready, as you can see. But I wanted to bring you along and show you how to do that hidden spine and how to repurpose something that was destined for the trash. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. We will talk to you soon. Bye.